everyone, it's Stacy Sorleen. I'm here with the South Dakota Pork Producers Council. As many of you know, have seen me around the state at several other events. Today we are bringing you our first virtual hog barn tour. We are excited to do this with this opportunity of all of us being at home and trying to flatten the curve due to COVID-19. We have this great educational opportunity for you. As part of our job is to educate about the industry and pig production and nutrition here in South Dakota. So during this tour, feel free to make sure you introduce yourself and mark where you're watching from. I'm going to turn it over to our president of South Dakota Pork Producers Council at this time. He's going to introduce himself and tell you where he's watching from and tell you a little bit about biosecurity and why we're not in the barns.
Hi, I'm Craig Andersen. I'm from Centerville, South Dakota, and I'm a pig farmer. One of the things that Stacy's bringing up is about the biosecurity and everything, and you notice that none of us are in an actual pig barn except Logan up at SDSU. This is to do to the same fact like that the biosecurity that we're using for ourselves at this time with COVID-19, this is the same thing that we do with the pigs. We try not to go between different barns or have different people come into the barn so that we're bringing outside diseases or whatever into a barn. That's one of the ways that we can keep them way healthier. So that's part of the reason for doing this. And as Stacy said, the South Dakota Pork Producer Council, you know, we're here for promotional things and for educational things. So we're hoping that this is going to be a real good educational thing for you today.
Again, just a reminder, please introduce yourselves and tell where you're watching from.
All right, thank you so much, Stacy and Craig, for those great introductions. And once again, welcome to our first virtual farm tour on Facebook Live. We're looking forward to sharing with you South Dakota State University's swine education barn and everything that it has to offer. Logan is an SDSU student who's majoring in animal science, and he originally grew up on a pig farm. So we're really excited to have him with us to go and share today a little bit more about what happens on a pig farm, what do pig farmers do every single day. Once again, just as a reminder, I know Stacy said it, feel free to go and share with us in the comments where you're watching from and who you are. And then as well, anytime throughout this whole event, if you have a question, put it in the comments and we'd love to get an answer for you as quickly as we can. And with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Logan, and he's going to give you a tour of what you're all here to see, a pig farm.
Hello, everyone. My name is Logan Tesh. Like I was introduced, I'm a student here at South Dakota State University. I also am the student manager here at the barn, so I help with some overall management duties here at the barn. I also serve as Minnesota's pork ambassador for this year. So I like to be on this video and promoting the swine industry. So, as was said before, I'm the only one that's here in the barn that is on this live tour. Like the reason said, biosecurity. I took extra measures coming in, taking a shower to help try and stop any of those diseases that possibly could be working their way into the barn. By taking a shower when I enter, as well as taking a shower when I leave so I don't pass it on to other pork producers. Another reason why I'm also inside is because South Dakota can be very unpredictable, like many of you know. We had 70s earlier in the week, and we're looking at snow towards the end of the week. Here in this barn, in where I'm standing, it's about 75 degrees constant. Through technology and computers, we're able to control the temperature to keep an environment that is comfortable for both the sows and their piglets. The last reason, or another reason why we keep them indoors, is to have better overall observation of our animals. Every day we come in the morning, make sure we look over the piglets, the sows, and making sure that they're up well, eating, drinking, and being active like they always should be. So that being indoors allows us to give extra care to them and understand what their current situation is. So I guess I'm going to kind of turn around and not show so much of my face, but we're going to kind of give a nice little pan of this barn. Well, I'm currently standing in the farrowing room of the SDSU Research and Education Center. This is where all the sows or moms give birth to their piglets. SDSU does this once a month in our barns because we're on what they call a batch farrow system. So once a month, the pregnant sows will come in, spend about a week between all of them having their litters, and then we'll continue to spend the next 2.5 to 3 weeks till our weaning day. After this point, all the little piglets that were shown before will go off into their nursery phase in the other barn that's also located on this site. SDSU has 2 of these farrowing rooms, as well as a gestation area when the sows are coming in to be rebred, as well as maintain their pregnancy. SDSU has 150 sows, like I said, that are sectioned off into different batches so that we can have nice groups to come in and farrow. So breaking this barn down a little bit more, as I was showing before, we've got a farrowing stall that has both an area for little piglets as well as moms. As you can see, there's a little bit of a size difference between the 2 of them. Moms averaging roughly anywhere from 450 to 600 pounds, as well as those piglets are about anywhere from 2 to 5 pounds at this point in time. So with these farrowing stalls, we create climates or environments that suits both mom and the piglets. The heat lamps, and there's also a heat mat on the other side of the farrowing stall, are both able to help keep the piglets warm because they like to have a temperature closer to that 90 to 95 degrees, whereas mom likes it closer to that 70, 75 degrees. Mom is also on a cast iron core in her stall to help her cool down a little bit faster in case the heat lamps have a little bit too much heat towards her. So in these, when the piglets are born, usually takes about 12 to 15, or well, takes anywhere from 5 to 12 hours for a sow to farrow. And we have these heat lamps and keep it a nice environment for those really fresh piglets to keep them warm. And then we continue to monitor them as they grow up. On day 1, we'll give them iron shots because pigs are born anemic or short of iron, as well as give them tags so we can identify them between their litter mates, as well as when they go to that nursery phase, tell them apart from each other in their group pens. Later on at day 3 or 4, we will dock tails as well as castrate the males because there's this thing called boar taint if we would leave them intact that would cause a off taste in the meat. So in order to have a great quality product for you consumers, we castrate the boars for it. And so as you can see, these piglets have a lot of room to move around. They spend upwards of 20 to 21 days in these farrowing stalls, drinking milk from mom that she produces herself and getting to play around with her litter mates. At 21 days, when we wean, we'll take the piglets off, and then they go to the nursery phase. They go on to a full dry feed. Another thing, so that's with our piglets. And now mom, we've got a lot of things for her. So she's got her individual stall. As you can see, she's got a few bars around her. The reason this is designed like this goes back to the size difference. The piglets are a lot smaller, and if mom wouldn't have anything around her, she could flop down and potentially flatten or crush one of her piglets. To minimize this, all these bars on the side allow mom to lay down a lot more slowly and smoothly, so she can, if in case there were piglets underneath, they have an opportunity to get out before mom makes a landing. This also helps when sows are farrowing because they can become a little aggressive. They are very protective of their piglets, and when workers like myself try to come in and help the piglets survive, mom might want to try and come after me. So these bars allow us to be in a safe area as well as the piglets and mom all at the same time. And for mom as well, we have this automatic, we have both water and feed ample available for them. One piece of technology that SDSU is very fortunate to have is what they call an automatic feeder. We are able to, with this technology, we're able to allow sows to access feed on their own, as well as be able to monitor how much feed she's consuming each day. As you can see, this sow has been eating very well because we have a nice bright or white or blue light. This means that she's been up throughout the day eating her amount of feed. If we would come in and see a red light or a yellow light, we realize that mom might not be feeling so well, and that we might have to either get her up or observe her for any illnesses or lameness issues. This electronic feeding system is very beneficial for us to easily identify issues with the sows and be able to be more proactive with our recovery system. Like any animal, not everything's going to be rainbows and sunshine. There's sometimes we have piglets that get ill, and we work closely with our veterinarians to come up with solutions on how to best treat the situation, whether that is with moving piglets around, using an antibiotic or treatment. We work closely with our veterinarian to discuss a plan, and we make sure we record everything so that we can be transparent with the consumers. Now, you can see mom has got quite a few pigs on her. Usually the average litter size is anywhere from 12 to 15, but sometimes sows will give more than 15 piglets. Personally, I've seen upwards of 20, 22, 24. So sometimes moms can't produce enough milk for those piglets. So what SDSU has is what they call these birth decks. And this is what this yellow box is right here. Currently, we do not have any piglets in here, but what it's designed for is to give the piglets who might be a little bit smaller and not be able to compete with his brothers and sisters in the litter, we give them a space that they can excel in their own little environment that's nice and warm, as well as we give them a milk replacer to substitute for mom's natural milk. Along with that, we monitor the piglets every day, and we also can possibly cross foster with other piglets if one sow had like 10 piglets or under that average. The other nice thing about SDSU's barn is that it's for educational purposes. As you can see at the end of the hallway, there's a window. Through that window, tours, students, and other individuals who want to learn more about pork might not be able to come into the barn or see these videos. So what we're able to do is give them a kind of first-hand look at what pig production is like. So they can come in, see through the glass, the different piglets in the farrowing room, as well as seeing the sows in the gestation area. This allows us to complete both the educational purposes as well as the research. With that research comment, this barn is not quite what a commercial operation looks like. We're a little bit smaller, but we still have the same principles and practices that a commercial operation would have. I guess with that, most of what I've explained is what we do on a daily basis. But like I said myself, I work at this unit and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that any of you have regarding this barn.
That's great, Logan. Thank you so much. I just had a couple quick questions based on some of the things that you said originally. You mentioned when the pigs are a couple of days old that you dock their tails. Can you explain to us what's the reason that you do that?
Exactly. So once these piglets go from mom at weaning, they go into group pens in their nursery and later become in the finisher. Now, due to them being in a group environment, they like to be nosy and play with each other. Well, possibly if they had their natural long tails that could be curly, like always shown in cartoons, we dock them because otherwise they have the potential to be bitten by their siblings in just playful fight, and that could infer possible infections and the need for treatment. So by docking their tails early on, we are able to help try and minimize that potential for tail bites in the finisher. Great question.
Yeah. And are you able to go and talk a little bit more about, obviously these pigs are pretty young, so they've probably just fared in the last few days. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the individualized care that you and the other barn employees are offering during that time? And what are some of the things that you're having to watch for to make sure that the farrowing or the birthing process goes well?
Exactly. So we've been farrowing all week long. So we've been coming in every couple hours and making sure, or observing to see if anybody has started farrowing. We try and go on a roughly half an hour per every piglet. So I guess that means if one piglet is born, we would try to look for another piglet behind her within 30 minutes. If we don't see it within 30 to 45 minutes, we will put on a sleeving glove, which is basically a big long glove on my arm, and we will go reach in and sleeve the sow to see if she's got a piglet inside of her. Reasons why she might have a piglet inside and not pushed out is because she's either been tired from having, like I said, 12, 15, maybe even more piglets at a time, or they could be possibly too much or too big for the sow if she's like a young gilt or a young sow in general. Along with that, we also help make sure they're all nursing right away. We try and get them to be on the underline. Piglets naturally will come out and basically go for the underlying teat right away. And if not, we try and help them get over by the underline to allow them to get their milk and get the colostrum, which has got a lot of immunity built in for the piglets to have.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to do another quick shout out to the crowd that at this point, this will be kind of our question and answer portion. So we would love for Logan to answer any and all questions that you might have. Feel free to just put them in the comments and they'll get sent right over to us. So that way we can get them answered as quickly as possible. We did get one question. How many times a year can one female become pregnant?
So the average for a sow is just over 2 years because a sow will gestate or be pregnant for 114 days, which is our short reminder for that is 3 weeks, 3 months, and 3 days. So as you look at a calendar, how many days are in the year, you're able to get about 2 to 2.4 litters per year.
Okay, great. And you talked about some of those smaller sows or the gilts. What is the difference between a gilt and a sow?
So a gilt is a female who has yet to give birth. And then once they do have their first litter, then they get to be called a sow.
Okay. And how old is a gilt when she actually will become a sow typically? So
gilts will naturally become or hit their puberty stage roughly within within 5 to 8 months of their life. At that point, we'll try to breed them if they come into heat or their puberty, and then we will wait that 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and they'll be roughly anywhere from 9 to 11 months when they have their first litter.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? A whole lot different than people. And we're seeing a little bit more of comments as well that talking about how rather than age, talking about weight is more important when it comes to breeding. So it's not necessarily based on the age, but based on being right around 300 pounds. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Logan?
Yep, it's because sometimes their natural cycling won't happen if they're not big enough or able to handle the overall challenges of hitting puberty, like many teenagers may experience. But if they're small, they won't cycle. So once they get to a bigger size, they'll more likely go into their heat cycle and be able to breed.
Okay. It looks like most of these sows are laying down pretty comfortably. Do they spend all their time laying down, or do they get up for different times of the day? That was just another one of the questions that we had.
Yep. So the sows do like to spend a lot of time laying down because they're trying to provide milk for their babies and the piglets. So mom has the ability to get up whenever she would like, and she can stand up to get her feed. Usually they're cool times is when they like to get up, whether that's in the morning or in the nighttime. But then usually during the day, especially as we come into this summertime and being hot, sows just like to chill out, let their piglets suckle on the side of them. But the mom is more than welcome whenever she would like to get up.
Okay. We have another question from the group. What is the average weaning litter size that you have per sow?
The national average is about 12 and a half. Here at SDSU, we're pushing that national average closer to the 13 piglets per sow.
Awesome. Can we talk about what is the average weaning weight per piglet? So obviously there's 12 and a half to 13 in a litter. How much does each litter weigh? Or how much does each piglet weigh? Excuse me.
Each piglet is anywhere from that 13 to 15 pounds when they are weaned. So quick math, they started at about 2 to 3 pounds when they were born, and then become that 13 to 15 in 3 weeks. So they more than triple in size, almost quadruple in size in just 3 weeks of age.
Oh, yeah, they grow pretty quickly. I'm glad we don't grow that fast.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit more about, you were talking about the lights that keep those piglets really warm. How can you tell that they're comfortable and that they aren't getting too warm?
So as you can see, these guys are nice piled together. If they would be a lot more spread out, that would be a sign that they're warm and don't want the other body heat from their sibling mate or their pen mates. If I know they would be piling more on top of each other, that would be a sign that they're too cold and they're trying to generate body heat themselves to stay warm. So we monitor these each day. And if we get to the point that these piglets are getting spread out and not utilizing the heat lamp, we'll lift it up and turn it off so that we're not using unnecessary electricity, as well as to try and keep the mom comfortable as well along with the piglet.
Yeah, well, that's a really great point. I guess that's something you don't always think about, but pigs will tell you exactly what they want. So talking about gestation or the breeding area, could you explain the breeding cycle? How do they come into heat, and then do you use artificial insemination? How does that whole process work?
So yes, after they hit puberty, or I guess for gilt, they usually start their first cycle, and then about 21 days after that, they will come into heat again, and we will try and target that 21st day and observe them. Here at SDSU, we use artificial insemination. We bring them up into our gestation stalls, so then we're able to run what we call a teaser bore, or basically just a boar to use his smell to help stimulate the sows to come into their heat. Sows will stand in heat anywhere from 18 to 24 hours and be able to receive the artificial insemination semen. We use catheters that are inserted into the reproductive tract, and then through the help of both the physical stimulation of us workers as well as the boar smell, the sow will basically take in that semen just like a natural breeding with an actual boar would be like. Here at SDSU, we try to target to give 2 doses of semen to the sows. This is to help promote more live born, as well as to make sure that we got a good dose into the sow to maintain or to hopefully get a pregnancy.
And could you talk about, just in the industry in general, why do pig farmers choose to use artificial insemination instead of doing natural breeding?
So there's a couple of reasons why we choose artificial insemination as an industry. The biggest one is quantity. If we just had one boar for every sow for natural mating, you would need to have a lot of boars. But with AI, we're able to collect semen from possibly top producing boars in the nation or for the company, and be able to take that amount of semen and break it down so we can have more doses per that one dose we got from the boar. Instead of having, so this way enables us to have at least upwards of 15 doses from one sow or from one boar or sows. The other reason we choose to do AI is a lot of safety reasons. The act of a boar mounting on top of a sow could cause some altercations and health problems with the sow. If the boar is too heavy or too big for them, they might not be able to handle it, and we could end up with issues. And as well as from a worker standpoint, if we have boars in there, we have a lot more boars to breed, you run that risk of a boar possibly turning on you or turning on an employee and causing personal harm. So this, having artificial insemination, allows for both safety for the animal as well as the worker.
Yeah, that's a great point. Could you talk about just some other things that you do in the barn that are talking about safety, not just safety for the pigs, but safety for the people, and how does it work for both of them?
So that, like was stated earlier, in the spare wing stalls, we're able to have an area for both the mom as well as us behind when we're doing any kind of sleeving or overall care.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I had another question that we got when we're talking about mom moving around. So obviously she can stand up and lay down in the stall. Can she get out and move around whenever she wants? Or how do you move those pigs around from one barn to the other, and how often does that happen?
So mom is not or cannot turn around in her stalls. This is to help her stay in an area where her piglets can suckle from her. As I said, we batch farrow, so about once a month is usually when we have our big rotation. When we have weaning day on a Monday, then our sows that just got rid of their piglets, we'll open up the gates, walk them down over to our gestation barn, which is just on the other side of this wall, and they will go into stalls to get ready for breeding at the end of that week. And then within a couple days, we will wash this room and then disinfect it, so that way we know it's a clean environment for these new sows and new piglets that are possibly going to be coming. And then we'll move, once everything is dry, we'll move our pregnant sows that are waiting in pens in gestation. We'll move them in and then let them get settled for a couple days to hopefully minimize any kind of stress that the sows might be going through before they go in and have their piglets.
Okay. We have another question talking about ear notching versus using ear tags. Why do you choose to do tags in the baby piglets, and what are some of the advantages that you've seen?
So the biggest thing for why we do it is because we do a lot of research at this barn, and these tags are a lot easier to identify which pig came from where, as we do different weights each day for this trial, and as we follow them into the finisher in the other barn, we're able to better manage the overall where our pigs are going. In the industry, there can be ear notches. Some people or some groups still do that, but a lot of companies have gone to tattoos. With the tattoos, they're able to show what farm they came from, what day of the week they were born, and like what state they come from. And you can do a lot of combinations with these tattoos. We as well do a tattoo on their shoulder on day 3 to show that they come from this farm at SDSU. We have a certain 5-digit code that we have.
sorry to be jumping around, but we've got all these great questions, so I want to keep them coming and keep answering them. Going back to talking about heat checking when you're using artificial insemination, when you find them in heat, how long after that will you give the first dose of semen?
So how we do it, we come in the morning and heat check. It's usually the third or fourth day after they're weaning, and we will see if they stand. On the first day we find heat, or on the Friday of our breed week, we will get them to stand, and then we'll give them about an hour or two break to let them take a break, and then see if it was actually a good hard heat. We'll come back that hour to 2 hours later, and then we will give that first dose of semen. Then we'll come back that next morning about 24 hours later, and then we'll give that next dose if she's still in heat. If we have any issues of her not standing well, or she was very, or we think she might not be able to, or she wasn't taking that semen very well, or she had pushed some out in a previous AI, we'll give her a third dose to try and hopefully get her to have a pregnancy.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. So I'm kind of hearing a little bit of noise going on. Is it common for it to be pretty loud in the farrowing barn, or is it pretty quiet? What's it normally like?
You know, it can be all over the place. When the piglets are excited and they're ready to eat, it can be pretty rambunctious in the barn, because those piglets are wanting to have a chunk of mom's underline. So they're all going against each other to try and get the right teat that they want. Piglets themselves have, once they're born and start to suckle, they know which teat that they like to have. And if two of them decide to clamp onto the same teat, they continually bicker over it the whole time they're in the farrowing rooms. But otherwise, there can be some downtimes, kind of like it has been this afternoon. Piglets have ate, they're just kind of chilling out. But then usually about every half an hour, the piglets will get up and they're going to want some more milk. So the chatter returns from the piglets.
That makes sense. I'm just going to give another shout out. If anybody has more questions, we would love to answer any and all of them. So feel free to send them our way. But while we're waiting for those, Logan, would you be able to just talk a little bit about how you grew up on a farm, and was it the same kind of farm that you have here at SDSU, or what sort of a farm did you grow up on?
So my farm at home is diversified. We have crops, cattle, we have hogs. But unlike this here in the sow barn, we had a finisher. So my dad and my uncle would get pigs in at about 40 pounds, or what they call a feeder pig age. And then we will raise them up for the next 4 months until they go off to market to become into the delicious pork products that we provide. And so we would do that turn, and you can almost get 3 turns in a year. The nice thing with a finishing operation is it's a little less labor intensive like a sow barn, because you still have the same daily observations and individual pig care. It's just that they're much older, and their immune system is usually built up a little bit better, so they can handle a little bit more stress compared to these newborn piglets.
Yeah. Talking about newborn piglets and some things that may come up, we had a question about how you deal with scours. How do you control that and minimize it?
So we have a product called SpectoGuard. We give it, it's 6 times we give it within the first 3 days. We notice scours. Some days we notice the last couple turns that scours that we have for like a day or so could be related to them just starting to go on milk. And we adjust and observe what the situation is like. We don't treat right away because if we, we try to observe the piglets' conditions. If we notice that it's a struggling herd or struggling litter, we will go and do our daily observations in all the other litters, and then work our way to the poorer litters, so that way we can not cross or continue or spread what one litter might have to the rest of our room. That's why we also don't step inside these crates here at SDSU, so that way we don't, whatever's on our boots don't end up in the farrowing stalls, and then the piglets could eventually take. So we'll just grab piglets out if we have to treat them, or do any other care to them.
Okay. Yeah, and talking about some of the employees that you're working with, just have some additional comments. They're saying that when you're giving some kind of a medication or something, that you're doing that very judiciously and working with your veterinarians, just like you were talking about earlier. And that's kind of a last resort. But like you said, it's important to try and do things to minimize it, like not stepping into the stalls or making sure that you're really catching it early. So that way you can get them better through natural remedies rather than always having to just go to medication. But obviously sometimes that is a necessary thing, and we want to make sure we're taking the best care of our animals that we possibly can be. I think we may have covered this, but let's say it one more time. We had a question about how much do the pigs weigh when they're weaned?
When they're weaned, they're about 13 pounds.
Okay. And another question, I know that sometimes in the industry or in pig farming, people will clip out their teeth. Is that done on SDSU's farm?
At SDSU, we do not clip teeth, or what they call needle teeth. And those are the, I believe it's four or eight sharp teeth right inside. The reason some operations do that is because they have a lot of issues with damaged underlines, because the piglets will chomp down with those needle teeth and injure mom's teats, and then they can't get any milk. Here we haven't noticed any major issues with needle teeth, but if it was necessary, we have the capacity to do that if we would have to combat some bad underlines.
Yeah. So I know this is kind of more of a broad topic, but when we're talking about agriculture in general, sustainability is a really big topic. What are some things that you'd say you're doing at the SDSU swine barn to make sure that you're being sustainable and that you're taking good care of the environment, taking good care of your resources like water and feed?
Yes, so we do a lot here, as well as many pig producers out there. We monitor our water consumption every day. So we have a water meter. We determine how much, hey buddy. We monitor how much water they drink each day, so we don't have any spillages. If we would see a large increase, we might have a leak somewhere that we would stop so we don't keep wasting good water. On the manure management side, we have pits located underneath all the sows, so that we're able to contain the manure, so that way it doesn't leach out into the environment, and then we'll store it, and then either in the fall or the spring, we'll apply it to neighboring crop ground to, in the end, raise corn and soybeans here in South Dakota to end up feeding the sows and the piglets to help them grow. We also, from an energy standpoint, kind of have we have our controllers to make sure everything's at the right temperature and being able to control how much is going on and be able to use it most efficiently.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really great to point out about using manure as a resource, because that's really what it is. It's a natural fertilizer that will allow the crops to grow so much better, which in turn will be fed to the animals so that way they can grow to give us all a great meat product at the end of the day. I think that's just a really cool sustainable cycle that when you think about it is pretty simple, but I'm so glad that we have that great story to tell as pig farmers. We have another question about what breed are these sows?
So we have, it's a landrace white, Chester white sow through PIC is where our females come from. And then the other half for our piglets comes from Durocs. So that's why you might see a little bit more of a reddish color on the piglets, because that's what a Duroc is colored, is a nice red color. We choose this, the Chester white and landrace are a nice big long sow that can support large litters, and the Duroc allows us to have a lot of meat quality characteristics once it gets to the finisher, and be able to grow fast and have a nice tender product.
And are these white breeds of pigs, are they common to see in pig farming?
Yes, a lot of the pigs in pig farming are white. One, just because their ability to have the large litters, as well as be very hardy and be able to handle, as well as on the meat packing side of things, to have a nice hide on the when they get processed. Packers like to have a nice white outside.
So when you're talking about processing, and obviously once they go beyond here, they're eventually, most of them, going to be made for pork products. Where do they go right from this barn? Are they moving somewhere else in South Dakota, or what barns do they go to next?
So these guys will actually, so at our weaning phase, we'll go over to our wean to finish barn right across the farm, where they'll spend the next 5 to 6 months there, raising up from their 13 pounds all the way to 280 pounds. They'll go through a series of diet changes to maximize their growth through their ability and different protein levels. And then once they get their market weight, here at SDSU, we load them up and they head down to a Smithfield plant in Sioux Falls.
Okay. And a quick question about that. How many pounds does a pig typically gain per day once it's in that nursery or finishing barn?
You try and shoot for anywhere around 1.5 to 2.5 pounds of gain per day.
Okay. And how many pounds of feed does that typically take to get there?
Early on, it doesn't take a whole, it can be a little bit less because they're just not eating a whole lot, but it ends up being 2 to 2.5, 3 pounds for every pound of gain. Okay,
that's pretty fast, yeah. Again, I'm so glad that we're not too much like pigs, because I would not want to grow as quickly as they do. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, Logan, or from the audience? Is there anything else that you would like to hear from us before we get to our closing and wrapping up? Logan, do you have anything else to share with us?
I think for myself, I would just like to say that I'm proud to be a pork farmer. I've done it for my whole life at home and here at SDSU. While being in college, I might be going for a 4-year degree, but I also have the ability to be working with these pigs hands-on at this Swine Education and Research Center. I really enjoyed the opportunity, and it's helped me propel myself within pig farmers across this nation. I've been able to do work with Minnesota's Pork Board as well as the National Pork Board as well, and I enjoy every bit I get of it.
Yeah, I'm probably biased, but I'd say pig farmers are some of the best kind around.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Logan. And I think we're going to turn it over to Craig, who again, he gave us an introduction, and he'll give us a great closing and talk a little bit more about what happens on his farm.
Hi. I would sure want to thank SDSU for letting us come take a look into the educational barn. And I definitely want to thank Logan for giving us the tour. I think it was well done, and it's great to see how the process gets started. One of the things that we do is that we just strictly finish on our farm. That means Logan had brought that up about this is in the fair wean, and they have a wean to finish barn, but we have just a strictly finishing barn. So what we do is there's a step in between that would be the iso-wean pigs going into a nursery. And then they come out of the nursery at about 50 pounds. And then we finish them up to the to where we take them to the packer then. That's generally up to about 280 pounds in our case. And so one of the things that Logan had brought up about the animal comfort, as you see the pigs laying there so nice and everything, that's the same type of things that we do in a finisher, is that we're looking for those same type of comfort levels. As he said, they'll generally be about 95 degrees here. It'll stair step down through the nursery and then through the finishing barn. But this is all the type of things that we watch for in a finishing barn. Just like he said, if they're piling on each other, you know it's too cold in there, and so you need to get it warmer. And if they're really, really spread out, you could maybe get it a little bit cooler in there so that it stays more comfortable for them. Maddie brought up about sustainability also, and that is one of the benefits for our farm is that the sustainability of the manure that we can apply for the corn that we grow to raise the pigs with. That is a big benefit. There's a lot of talk in corn production now about biologicals that you want to add to your seed. Well, pig manure and cattle manure are the original biologicals. There are biologicals in there, and it's a very complete type of fertilizer that we can use for a lot of the micronutrients and everything for the corn production. The sizes and everything that we're looking at, and a typical day for us is that we will go out and walk through the barns and do our daily checks, make sure that all the feeders are working, all the waters are working and things like that. We have controllers that control the ventilation, the heat. It'll monitor how much water that is being used and everything. And that is all part of things that we want to check on every day. It's all about being able to make the animal comfortable, and so that we can get good production out of them with very minimal antibiotics or any kind of medicine that we have to. We do use vaccinations as much as we can, because that is one of the best ways to prevent when we get diseases. So anytime we can prevent, it's just like the old saying is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so we always want to take care of it at the beginning. And that's part of the thing about the biosecurity, that we don't want to bring outside diseases in and give to the pigs. I should also let you see that I am wearing my SDSU colors because I'm a proud Jackrabbit. So go Jacks. Is there any other questions, or is there anything that we need to cover additionally to this? Well, if we're coming kind of closer to the end, are we going to have anybody else come on? Stacy, were you going to come on and say anything, or? Well, I guess not. So we'll probably just get to send you off. And I sure want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. I hope you found it all interesting, and that if there's any other questions, feel free to ask us. And we try to do the best thing that we can for educational purposes.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, and thanks, Craig, for joining us, and Logan and Maddie. This video will be up on our Facebook page. It'll also be on our website. Feel free to contact us via email or Facebook Messenger. We're happy to help you answer any questions that you might have going forth.